Good morning, welcome everybody. This session is Who Knew? Now you do funding and training resources you have access to. So if that's the session that you're supposed to be in, you're in the right place. In this session, Marla Rye, President of Workforce Essentials, will be moderating a panel of speakers who will share information of funding resources and training opportunities available to employers through the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development, Workforce Essentials, and Education Data Systems Incorporated. Marla Rye serves as the president of Workforce Essentials Incorporated, providing workforce and economic development services across 41 counties in Middle and West Tennessee. During her decades-long career, during her extensive career with Workforce Essentials, Marla has received numerous local, state, and national awards for leadership through community service and economic development. She is the recipient of the National Association of Workforce Development Professionals coveted Thomas Ahlers, close enough, Ahlers System Building Award, which recognizes individuals who have made significant contributions to the profession. She also holds a bachelor's degree from Austin Peay State University in Business and Accounting.
Thank you very much. So, short story. During the first session, my bio said that I had been with Workforce Essentials for 30 years, and I said, that makes me sound really old. So then she says decades, and that was plural. So, welcome. You know, this is a smaller group than what we had the first go around, but I think it's more powerful. You look good. Today we're going to talk a little bit about resources that are available to help you as employers with the challenges that Greg and our keynote speaker was talking about this morning. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. As a nonprofit, we've got 3 accounting positions open right now. So I feel your pain that are having problems staffing, whether it's entry-level workers or those skilled technical positions. It seems like we just all pull our hair out, and my husband's asked why I have so much gray now, but it's really a challenge. So I have been in workforce development for 30 years, and there has been a workforce development program since the War on Poverty and Lyndon Johnson, to where the federal government has felt that it's part of their responsibility to help individuals and help employers train their existing workforce. It started out with the Comprehensive Employment Training Act. It went to the Job Training and Partnership Act, JTPA, to WIA, the Workforce Innovations Act, and now we're on the 4th rendition, the Federal Workforce Innovations and Opportunity Act. They may refer to it, or you may hear it as WIOA, and that's the federal program. So I like to kind of describe it as, here are job seekers on one hand, here's employers on the other. Our job under this program is to help the two convene and meet in the middle for a productive employer-employee relationship. And to do that, you've got to know, I personally believe that you've got to know what employers are needing to be able to provide clear guidance to the job seekers. And we have several grant programs that are available that support employer services. Today I've got an outstanding panel for you that are going to talk about a few of the programs that are available for employers to support their workforce development challenges. I've got Liz McLaughlin from Educational Data Systems Incorporated, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about some employer advantages and services through on-the-job training. Andrea Dillard, who is with the Northern Middle Tennessee Workforce Board, and is going to talk about apprenticeships and incumbent worker training. And then we've got the handsome devil on your left over here, John Alexander, and he had to bring some, you know, masculinity to this panel up here. We appreciate John. He is the Regional Director of the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development for the Northern Middle Tennessee region. John, since we were on you, why don't you just kind of start and talk to us a little bit about you and what you do with the Tennessee Department of Labor.
Okay. As Marla said, I'm the Regional Director for Northern Middle Tennessee, which comprises a 13-county area. Tennessee's kind of divided into 9 areas for offices, and Northern Middle is what we call one of them, our area. We do, obviously, you know, we do unemployment, We do TOSHA, we do a variety of things. We do adult education, boilers and elevators, and then workforce development is what we're keying in on today. That's what I do. We also help, under that umbrella, we also help operate and staff the American Job Centers and the mobile American Job Centers. Can you go into reentry?
Well, let's go around and then
Okay.
we'll come back to you.
Good morning, I'm Andrea Dillard, and as Marla said, I am with the Northern Middle Tennessee Workforce Board. I'm the Director of Program and Planning. And how many of you all are familiar with American Job Centers in this area? Good, I like to see we have quite a few hands. One of my primary roles and responsibilities, as John said, we cover a 13-county area, of which we have American Job Centers in each of those locations. Some are small in those small counties, and some are larger, like we have in Murfreesboro. But my primary role and responsibility is to work with those partners within the AJCs in the delivery of the services, and also to work with employers and existing workers and job seekers, and trying to determine what services are needed in order to get them where they need to be in this workforce environment.
Liz?
Good morning. My name is Liz McLaughlin. I'm the Tennessee Program Director for Educational Data Systems Incorporated, or EDSI. EDSI is a national company that is headquartered in Dearborn, Michigan. We have recently become a part of the Tennessee region in Northern Middle, starting in 2021, and then most recently in Southeast Tennessee in July of this year. I am a Tennessee, I call myself a native. I've been here since '93, so I figure I'm a native at this point. But we are a company that helps agencies, companies, and communities with workforce development and getting great talent for those employers in the communities that we serve.
Thank you very much. So now let's dig into the specifics of some of these programs. This morning you heard Greg say that there's about 200 individuals in Rutherford County that would be considered reentry candidates. I would venture to say there may be more than that are in the Rutherford County Jail, that are out on probations and parole, that have backgrounds that are barriers, that present barriers to them obtaining employment. So John, do you want to talk a little bit about the federal bonding program and how the Department of Labor supports employers on it?
Yeah. Before I get into that, I'd like to also talk about the reentry listing tour that is going to be held on 6 December at 9 o'clock in the morning at Nashville State Community College. All your questions about reentry can be answered there. I didn't bring any flyers, I'm sorry, but if you're interested in attending, I've got a QR code you can scan after the meeting. It tells you all the details about it. But back to reentry, doesn't matter which side of the fence you fall on.
That was good, John.
None of you caught that, but folks that have barriers to employment are becoming an increasing or alarming, some say, numbers in our society. Doesn't mean they're bad people, it just means they most times had a bad break or made some bad decisions, maybe a better way to put it. But increasingly employers are reluctant to hire those folks because of those barriers, because they consider them a risk to their employer, to their company. So the federal government years ago created this federal bonding program to help encourage employers to give these folks a chance. And we've had a lot of success with that in Tennessee. Basically, it's just a tool to help motivate an employer to give this person a chance, all right? And the way it does that is it contracts with a private insurer, Travelers Insurance Company, and they issue a bond in the amount of $5,000 to pay the company if that employee that's bonded conducts any kind of misconduct while they're employed. The bond is initially issued for $5,000 for a 6-month period. It's renewable after that, but generally speaking, on renewal, there's a fee involved, but the initial bond is free. And if an employer for some reason requires a higher level of a bond, it's available in $5,000 increments up to $25,000. But basically, it's just insurance. It's just an insurance policy that protects against theft, forgery, larceny, embezzlement, or anything that employer does that's dishonest and harms the company. The slide says it does not cover motor vehicle damage, but it does cover everything else just about. It's a free bond. One of the drawbacks to the program, it's not really a drawback, but one of the things I don't like about it is it's not like an employee or a potential employee can go out and get a bond and then go look for a job. Well, I suppose they could, but this program doesn't work that way. They have to have a job offer. And generally the bond's applied for on the first day of employment, or it could be any day after that. But it's a simple process. The employer just goes on the website that we'll list up here. You fill out like a one-page form. It's a really simple form. The bond's issued that day, and you're notified of that at the end of that process. And then in about 10 days, you'll receive communication, usually a letter from Travelers, which has the formal bond itself. There's a variety of people that qualify. It's not just ex-offenders. It could be obviously justice involved is one category, but recovering substance abusers, welfare recipients. Some people don't like to hire welfare recipients. Poor credit history. If you've got a dishonorable discharge from the military, that can be covered. Disadvantaged youth, coming from families with low income, they're all covered. Just about anybody who can't get a job without a bond is covered. No one's turned down. The only requirement really is you have to meet the state's minimum age for legal to work. And if you've got specific questions or details, you can contact Melanie Taywater up there. She's the one that actually, at the other end of the computer, whenever you do the application process, she's the one that issues the bond, and she'll have all your answers to any questions you might have. I think my slides got out of order, but if you got any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them now. Yes.
So,
How often does that actually get used? Like, is that a well-used program, or?
Yeah, it is. Maybe not every day, but
Repeat the
multiple
question,
times.
John.
Pardon me?
Repeat the question.
I'm sorry. The question was, how often does it get used? And I don't have that number with me, and it's not every day, but several a week. It's one reason I'm here today. It's a little-known resource.
Gotcha.
We're trying to remedy that.
Can I clarify your question? In asking that, are you asking how many employers take out a bond?
Yeah.
Now, my question in response to that was, do you know how many times that payout has to occur for an employer as a result of having the bond?
I do not, and I'm not sure that information is shared with us, to be honest with you. It's a federal program. We administer it in Tennessee through Travelers, but the contracts are held by the federal government, so I'm not sure.
So one of the things that I like to say is if you as a company embrace hiring justice-involved individuals and want to use that as a strategy, then this program could support that and help minimize the risk. But it depends on what your policy is as an employer and your background checks. You may have folks that aren't going to be eligible for employment with you. So it has to work alongside with your existing HR policies.
Like now, I represent Yates Services. We're Nissan's largest subcontractor across the street. It's like now, just because someone has a felony background does not in and of itself rule themselves out with employment for us. All of those are reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Right now, we still have a ceiling, if you will, of not being able to employ what we call hardcore criminals, individuals who have either a sexual history or an extremely violent, aggressive background. But I could see where potentially we're all looking outside the box.
Yes.
How maybe this could allow us to look, maybe, obviously this will be decided in a higher power, but maybe look at those that up to this point we've not been able to consider if this gives us an additional safety net that we currently don't have.
And that's exactly what the purpose of it is to minimize your risk of hiring John or whoever it might be that has a background, not that John does. But the other thing I think about reentry programs that I really like to do is I like to work with the local jails and the local probations and paroles, because we had a question previously about how do you find these people? So you've got to establish the company culture that I'm going to embrace these. We want to go and we want to obtain and recruit this individual or individuals and participate in this program and make it a concerted effort that, yes, we're going to hire individuals that are justice involved.
Is it per employee that you would get a bond for, or does the one bond cover multiple?
No, just one employee at a time.
Question time.
I'm sorry.
We've been told to repeat the question for the camera, so.
The question was, does it cover one employee or multiple employees? And the answer is one employee per bond.
Thank you.
But it's a very simple process. Like I said, it's a simple form to fill out. It's not even a long form. It's a real simple form. And you do it online, and you don't have to sign anything. Do it online and send it up.
Questions?
Are these, the bonds also something that can be used for state employees or someone considering being hired through the state?
As a state employee, that's a hard question.
I think it would be up to the state agency that is doing the hiring, that if they want to participate and they want to hire, I don't know why they couldn't, but that's just Marla's educated guess.
Good guess.
I would think. Anything else? Well, let's move on to Andrea. Andrea works for the Northern Middle Workforce Board, and there's, again, that job seeker employer. Really, I believe for us to be successful, we got to focus a lot on that employer and meeting their needs. So, Andrea, how do we go about doing that?
So one of the, pardon me, first things I want to talk to you about is incumbent worker training grants, which is this handout that you should have that is stapled together. And have any of you as employers actually accessed incumbent worker training grants? Okay, so this is, as Marla said, I work for the Northern Middle Tennessee Workforce Board, and this is something we administer in our area, in the 13 counties that we cover. But an incumbent worker grant is something an employer can apply for, and you can apply for up to $25,000. This is a cost reimbursement grant, and it's to train your existing workforce or your incumbent workers. And the definition of incumbent, as far as this grant is concerned, is in order for the employees that you're having trained for specific training, they would have to have worked for you for a minimum of 6 months, or at least the majority of the individuals you're having trained have to work for you for a total of 6 months or more. You have to be an employer located in the state of Tennessee. You have to be a for-profit. The only nonprofits that can apply are in the healthcare arena. And the trainings are pretty broad. The only type of training it really can't pay for are those trainings that are required by law or required or mandated by your occupation, like sexual harassment training or OSHA for some manufacturing companies. Those are required that you have to do regardless, so it wouldn't fund those trainings. But the only other definitions it gives is it has to be a training that will increase the skill level of your employees, or it makes your business practices or processes more efficient, or it makes both your company and the employees that you have more competitive in today's work environment. So that's pretty broad. Who can do the training? Well, you can get your training done by an outside vendor. If you have internal trainers or you have individuals within your workplace that have the knowledge that you need and they can be your facilitator, then the money that you get from the grant can be used to pay their training costs, their cost up to $50 an hour. A lot of employers that do incumbent worker training with us, especially when COVID hit, they've elected to do a lot of online training. You can do that too, as long as it meets the guidelines. So the one thing I'll go back and reemphasize, it is a cost reimbursement contract. So that means that you do all of the training and you purchase it, you pay for it on the front end, and then when the training is over, you would work with an individual like myself, or depending on what area you come from, or someone else, and provide documentation that shows you paid that training expense, at which point in time we would reimburse you. This is a way to take maybe an existing employee that you have that may be in an entry-level position, and maybe they need some additional training or some classes or things that would enable them to be promoted to a next level type position. It could fund those types of things, so it could be an incentive for your existing workforce. This would be, if you were interested, my contact information is on the back. You could send me an email, and I would email to you what's called an incumbent worker training application. It's like 4 or 5 pages. Once you got that, if you needed help, I would be more than happy to assist you in that process. This is something that we do on our program year runs from July through June. So let's just say if you were to get a contract now, if you started working with me and we had a contract that started in January, then I would do your contract from January till the end of May to give us the last month of June as a closeout. So you'd have, five months there. If it's something you did at the beginning of our program year, then you would have almost a year to complete the training. Sometimes you need the full $25,000. Sometimes you may be a small company that only needs to train one individual on something, and you only apply for $2,000, and that's fine. So that's incumbent worker training.
And before you go to apprenticeship, I want to add too.
Okay.
The speaker this morning talked a lot about company culture and building programs that would help with retention. I think that this incumbent worker training program is one of those programs, because how many of you all have got employees that are there every single day, that are entry-level workers? Maybe they're frontline, or they're CNAs, whatever entry-level skill sets, but they're dependable, loyal employees. And you know that if you took and could invest dollars in them to move them up to an LPN or a maintenance mechanic or industrial maintenance, maybe you wanted to send that frontline worker here to the Tennessee College of Applied Technology to take training courses, the grant will pay for that tuition fee associated with that upskilling. And look at the goodwill that it's building building for the company to invest in your current workforce. So use that strategy when you're thinking about incumbent worker training. Also, apprenticeship programs, Andre?
Yes, I want to go back and touch on one more thing I forgot on the incumbent worker training, because when you start reading this, I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, that's not a good thing. It talks in there in incumbent worker training that there is an employer match. And the match is based upon the number of permanent employees that you have at your location. So if you have 50 or less, there's a 10% match required. If you have 51 to 100, it's 25%. If you have over 100, it's 50%. What I want you to understand is you don't have to have the hard cash money to put down on the table as your match. So if you're just going to do training and you're going to ask for the full $25,000, you have over 100 employees, then your match has to be $12,500. What your match can be, and I would work with you on how to show that, would be when your employees are in training, you're actually still paying their wages while they're training. So that's what you show as your match. Or if you're having, to rent out a facility or somewhere to do the training, or you're bringing a trainer in from the outside, the money can pay the trainer, but the money can't pay for their travel expenses. So the travel expenses on paper could show as a match. So when you start reading that, I just didn't want you to think, oh, so if I need $25,000, I got to come up with $12,500. That's not how it works. You do other things to show as your match. Now, moving to the pretty little chart that's front and back, this is talking about apprenticeships. Now, over the last 2 years, apprenticeships has become a really big thing in the state of Tennessee. Governor Lee is very much for apprenticeships. So much so now at the Tennessee Department of Labor, we actually have an apprenticeship division. And when you look at the back of this, you will see who those individuals are at Department of Labor that manage the apprenticeship training division. And at the present time, Ms. Charlene Russell is the apprenticeship director for our Middle Tennessee area. So I don't know about you all, but used to, when I would think about apprenticeships, I only associated apprenticeships with skilled labor type positions. plumbers, pipe fitters, electricians, those types of things. But basically, I'm here to tell you that an apprentice position can be basically any position that you have. And the great thing about this division that we have now within the State Department of Labor and Workforce Development is when you contact, and if you were to reach out to Charlene today and say, hey, you have some type of position within your company and you're needing X amount, you need to have 3 and 4 people trained, have those positions filled, you need an apprentice. She's going to help you walk through the steps of putting that apprenticeship program together. It's going to be very structured. It's going to be built just like an apprenticeship would for a skilled labor position. So you're going to be starting at level 1 and they're going to come in at this amount, and then when they progress to level 2, that curriculum they're going to progress in pay to this amount, and their knowledge level is going to go up. So you start as an apprentice. When all is said and done, you end as that journeyman or at the highest level. So a lot of people like that structure. So that's very attractive to a lot of individuals. This is, with the apprenticeship, the way that we help out with this, the state people that you see on the back, they help you get your apprenticeship program registered. Other good news today. In order for you to receive any type of other additional funding resources, such as what we can help you with, your program has to be federally registered apprenticeship. A lot of companies have what they call their own internal apprenticeship programs, but they never register them. In order for you to receive additional funding resources, they would have to be federally registered. Well, the good news is our state can now do that. Before, you had to apply through the Federal Department of Labor. It was a little bit more time consuming, it took longer, but now our state is approved to do that at this level. So the process is less complicated and more timely, and you're able to get your apprenticeship program up and running quicker. Then what happens is, once that apprenticeship is in place and it's approved, then, and I'll stick with Charlene since she's our rep, Charlene then puts you in contact with individuals like myself or counterparts across the state, and we assist you with funding that apprenticeship. So for the last 2 years, the state has actually awarded areas like ourselves and others what's called a state apprenticeship grant. We use those funds to help you as an employer fund your apprenticeship programs. As we sit here right now, we have a grant that runs from July until June 23. And what we can do is, for your first year apprentice, we can help you with those costs anywhere from $2,000 up to $2,500. Or if you have a second year apprentice, we can assist you with those costs from $1,000 up to $1,500 per individual. Now, you may be thinking, well, that doesn't sound like a lot of money. In the big scheme of things, it may not be, but I will kind of give you an example I used with the first group. Just yesterday in Clarksville, I visited with one of our newest employers. They just started their own apprenticeship program this past year. They have 20, and they were a small mom and pop electrical company, but they're needing new apprentice. They're growing their business, they're expanding. So they brought 20 new apprentice on, and they took some of their existing employees, as Marla was alluding to earlier, and actually made them apprentice. They weren't doing electrical work at the time they were hired, but now they're in this apprentice program. So they started their training, I don't know, it's probably been almost a year ago. They submitted all of their documentation for their first invoice, so I hand delivered to them yesterday a check for $44,000. And I said, well, I know it may not be much, and her response back to me was, $4,000 is, anything that we can get back to help fund our program. We know that we're better off even if we're not getting funding, because data shows that when you have an apprenticeship program and these individuals are earning as they learn, and that's the seller right there, they have that on-the-job learning, so they're getting paid while they're learning, and so the retention on the back end is what is so appealing. They're staying with the companies even after that apprenticeship is over. So, questions for me about incumbent worker or apprenticeships? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm super excited about this, so thank you for sharing this today. Is there a time frame in which it's best to apply for this? Or do you kind of have, I know it's a great, we don't have unlimited funds, but what does the funding of that look like?
Like for incumbent work, so the question is, what is the time limit for like applying for incumbent workers? So our contracts that we operate, our money that we get runs from July through June. So I'll go back to the example I gave. So let's say that next week I sent you an application and it was training that we could get a contract in place and you could complete by the end of May. Great, we could go ahead and do it. If it's training that's going to be more lengthy than that, you could go ahead and submit your application, and then would say, hey, let's just wait and not issue your contract till we get our new funding and our new program year, like July 1.
Okay, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, Ms. Liz.
The other thing I want to add about the Ahlers apprenticeship program, again, going back to that company culture, and I work a lot with transitioning soldiers out at Fort Campbell. They're used to that structure of an apprenticeship program and knowing when they're going to advance and when they're going to get pay increases. A registered apprenticeship program lives up to those standards of this is what you're going to learn, this is the time frame you're going to learn it in, this is the wage progression you're going to have. So for a lot of folks today, they want that structure, and again, it helps build that company culture. Liz.
I'm Liz. I'm with EDSI. This morning, we heard our keynote speaker talk a lot about hard skills and how we may want to hire someone who may not have that degree or those skills, and how do we get those skills so that we can hire those people that typically we wouldn't normally look at. And so one of the things that the American Job Center offers is what we call on-the-job training, or OJT. That program is offered to our Title I or WIOA participants. There is an eligibility requirement to be in that program as an OJT participant, but the basic gist of the OJT is we work with employers to place folks in that they would vet and hire just as they would any normal employee. It would be your employee. The difference is that we would pay 50% of their hourly wage, up to $19.55. We work with the employers as well to help with any kind of training needs or evaluation, things that they feel like we need to address with that particular participant. They can be on an on-the-job training for up to 400 hours, and then we anticipate that they will be ready to go on their own as an employee of your program or your company. The other opportunity that we have for employers is what we call paid work experience. That opportunity we usually gear towards our youth Title I enrollees. Our youth age is from 16 to 24. We work with a lot of kids who are getting out of high school, looking for a job opportunity, may not have those work skills that they need to get that opportunity. So we will put them in a paid work experience. And what that is EDSI pays their hourly wage up to $15 an hour. They are able to work in your company with just simply as a labor, and we take care of all the other things that you would normally take care of with an employee. We will do that for up to 500 hours, and then with the hopes that they will be trained and have some skills and maybe could become a permanent part of your establishment. I mentioned that WIOA or Title I does have some eligibility requirements. Some of those might include folks who are dislocated workers. They've lost their job due to no fault of their own. They may be low income. They may be homeless. There are various ways that they can qualify for the Title I program. There's also opportunity where if you as a hiring manager may find someone who might be eligible or you think might be eligible for Title I, and you could refer them to us if you're interested in doing an OJT with someone you've already identified as somebody you may want to hire. So there's lots of different opportunities with the American Job Center as far as employee services in those two avenues. Questions? Awesome. Thanks.
So, again, I've been in this business for a long time, and this is federal programs. So I like to say it's my taxpayer dollars, it's your taxpayer dollars. And so as employers, you need to be aware of these programs and you need to take advantage of them, because they're not free, we pay for them, and we need to make sure that we're utilizing them to build a strong workforce. And again, I think it's all about company culture and being able to train from within and providing those services that are going to show your employees that you're invested in them, and I think these programs do that. One thing that I will say is that how do you access them? How do you take advantage of them? Make sure you know where your American Job Center is and work with those individuals. If you're interested in a grant, Andrea has given, on her handout, there's a list of folks that you can contact there about apprenticeship programs. Excuse me. Also, for those of you all that are interested, John mentioned this earlier, but in addition, we're a regional company, so in addition to working with the Rutherford Chamber, we work with the Nashville Chamber as well, and they are co-hosting 2 meetings that are coming up. The one on December 6th is about reentry, and there are some very strong nonprofits in Middle Tennessee that work with reentry personnel. The Tennessee Prison Outreach Ministry, Project Return, lots of Men of Valor, lots of different nonprofit organizations. They're all going to be there to talk about how you as an employer can work with their groups and assist with reentry. Then on December the 15th, the Nashville Chamber is going to have a talent pipeline meeting focused only on apprenticeships and developing apprenticeship programs. So if that is something that interests you and you liked what Andrea said today and want to know more about how your company specifically can start an apprenticeship program and how the state of Tennessee can come sit down with you and help you develop your standards of operation, because with an apprenticeship program there's 2 training parts that's required. There's an on-the-job learning, and then there's a related technical instruction. So classroom and on-the-job as well, and you have to have standards laid out for both of those. The state has people that will help you develop that, and then we've got the funding to assist in the startup of that. So that's December the 15th. I think both of these events are listed on the Nashville Chamber's event page. So if you want, and both of these are free, so if you want to go sign up and register for them, I would encourage you to do that as well. But I appreciate you all coming today and learning about more about our federal workforce programs. And I will just ask, did you all learn something new today? And is it something that you think that you could use within your company? Any other questions for the panelists? If not, let's give them a round of applause. We actually are going to get out a few minutes early. We did good this time. We were running.
Less people, so.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.